Have you ever felt like nothing was clicking in Rocket League? No matter how many free play sessions or training packs you churn through, nothing seems to be working. If you've ever experienced this, it may be time to adjust your controller settings. Hey, I'm Jack, your friendly neighborhood Rocket League player who was caught a bot before competitive was plagued with them. In today's video, I'm going to share a story about how I recently changed my controller settings. Let's get into it. It was another day at DFH Stadium and all was rather relaxing. I'd been over at Utopia and Wasteland for a brief stint of 3v3 casual to let the caffeine hit my system. The boost tank was warm and my little octane was primed for the next competitive session. Here I was, ready for the first kickoff of the match. The first minute of the game was here and there. I'd nailed my first few touches on the ball before a classic whiff. In typical Rocket League fashion, I was matched with a duo party that continued to play the game as if I didn't exist at all. Luckily, I was vibing to some tunes and took another sip of my tasty coffee after taking the win. And thus, it was over to Beckwith for the second game. The breeze blowing through Beckwith trees is always a calming sight whenever loading into the map, but something about heading into this kickoff didn't feel calm. I decided to cheat for the ball on the first kickoff, but completely missed my aerial, watching as the ball soared over my little octane into the goal. The ricochet of the goal explosion allowed for an onslaught of water saves to drop in the chat. Rocket League, I love you. Nothing didn't improve throughout the game either, so I was looking forward to recollecting my thoughts over at Neo Tokyo. As the glow of the Bob's Ramen sign made my stomach grumble, I was even hungrier to get my second win for the session. 2 minutes into a demo-heavy, boost-stealing affair, the scores were tied. My teammate contested to get a perfect 50-50. Shooting the ball center of field and a perfect opportunity for me to capitalize. My fingers held the controller a little tighter when timing my aerial, but what happened next was far from the right aerial. The boost tank was depleted, and I fell from the air, the nose of my octane not even a breath away from the ball as the opponent took possession. My touches on the ball were a little too heavy. I was starved of boost, and it's like I forgot how to aerial. Even after playing with the exact same controller, the same car, and the exact same setup for 2 years, I felt like I'd just picked up the game. Something was clearly wrong, and I needed to fix it. I had the idea to spend some more time in free play and playing through some custom training packs, but that just made me feel even worse. So I'd queue more competitive, only to fall even further away from Grand Champion. It's like I was going through that phase every Rocket League player seems to go through, where you don't feel like you're making any progression, and nothing seems to be working. Literally, no matter what you try to do. I was scrolling through the YouTubes and decided to cheekily throw in the keywords Hardstuck in Rocket League in the search, to see if there was anything that could be my saving grace. I stumbled upon a recent video by Thanovic, claiming he'd improved immensely after changing his controller settings. Apparently, he felt like the updated controls allowed him to feel more in control of his car, which is what I'd been lacking recently. I'll link his video down in the description below. The bonus was that him and I have the exact same controller bindings and use the same controller, so I thought I'd give it a cheeky crack. Initially, I didn't really notice much. Like yeah, I was still hitting the ball half decently, but there wasn't anything drastic. I spent about an hour or so with these controller settings, but felt like I needed to make some slight adjustments to them, leaving me with these controller settings on the screen now. A little all over the place, but I will admit, increasing a lot of these settings made the game feel fresh again. I know when I first got my PS5 controller, I tried to copy all the pro settings, which were quite low, but overall, in those 2 years that I used these pro controller settings, really didn't notice much of an improvement in my gameplay. In a way, I kind of got hard stuck with them. So here is a shout out to Thanovic, a superstar here in the OCE region that produces some really quality content too. No, I'm not talking about that kind of happy ending, you saucy devil, but hey, since changing my settings, the game feels fresh again. Mind you, I changed my settings right before the influx of bots, and just before returning to full-time work, so I haven't quite settled into using them just yet. I thought I'd also share some notable mentions since changing my controller settings. Here's what I've got to say. Firstly, increasing my controller dead zone has really improved me not backflipping as much whenever going for aerials. I felt like I was backflipping every second aerial I was going for, so this has really helped me. Next is I actually feel control of my car when aerialing. For some reason, with such a low aerial sensitivity setting, I felt out of control at times and could never really nail my tornado spins. As a result of increasing my aerial sensitivity too, I've noticed I've been feathering my boost a lot more. I'm not exactly sure how, but I feel like this increased aerial control has also improved improved my boost control as a result, so win-win I guess. I low-key can almost horse dash now and I've actually managed to pull it off a few times, so probably not important but still a notable mention of mine. I can also stall a lot easier, and I feel like, again, this is probably not so important, but if it comes to looking to get double flip resets, I feel like this is a handy tool to have now. I just need to work on getting the first flip reset down pat, and then we'll go from there. Now, I know I've repeated this a lot in this video, but changing these controller settings has allowed me to have a fresh feel to Rocket League again. Even towards the end of last year, I felt stagnant and hard stuck to where I was, but having these changed controller settings really makes me want to have fun in Rocket League again. I know sometimes I take competitive way too seriously, wanting to go for Grand Champion every single game, but being realistic this season and just enjoying the game for what it is. And as we all know, it's been quite hard recently with all the bots, but I'm glad that Psyonix has finally done something about it to ban those players that chose to do so. Lastly, and quite an interesting one, is I may or may not have dabbled into using a new car that is kind of stuck now. Leave a comment down below if you can guess which car I'm currently using. Who knows, probably in a month or so I'll be back to the Octane. So that concludes my notable mentions, and I guess I just wanted to have a quick chat about changing things up in Rocket League. If you ever feel like things are starting to get a little stale or you're not seeing any improvement in your game, it's definitely worth revisiting your controller settings and even the car you're using. Sometimes a small change can be that much needed just to provide a bit of refreshment to continue on the never-ending grind that is Rocket League. While I don't have any specific controller settings I'd recommend players to use, I hope that sharing my thoughts and experiences changing my own to be somewhat helpful or useful to you. So there we have it. Here's a little story on why I changed my controller settings and how much of a positive impact it has had on my playing experience. What's something you've changed up in Rocket League to make it feel fresh again? Leave a comment down below so we can continue the conversation. As I mentioned, I noticed a lot of improvement in my aerial control. If you're someone looking to get some handy advice, this video here may be for you. Or why not check out the one YouTube recommends here? I'm Jack, and I'll see you next time. Catch ya.